Hello everybody, and what's going on? 5869 here with another replay analysis. This time we're going to be going over a 5.1 or 5.2k-ish Phantom Lancer. He said, he had some trouble, think about whether or not he should fight or just keep farming, stuff like that. So we'll go over it. First things first though, if we take a look at his items, first thing was a little bit slow buying them, not too bad. Could have been faster and been out towards the rune a little bit quicker. Could have been, in a slightly better position to potentially see somebody warding. Actually, we see two wards being placed mid. That's really weird. I guess expecting the Lesh mid or something. I have no idea what's going on. But yeah, so that's, it could be worse, could be better. That's no big deal. It's just small things like this that when you're up around this 5k level, you need to get an inch out of every mile, right? So just ensuring that you have, wow, this is pretty ridiculous right now. You need to ensure that you're doing everything almost perfectly or near perfectly. So you need to be getting your items exceptionally fast. You need to be getting out, spotting out if they're placing any aggressive wards as the offlaner, if they're trying to block your camp, things like that. And the second thing is, if you look at how the lanes are going to work out here, in my opinion, it's fairly obvious, right? Or at least it seems obvious, and you should itemize this way. So they have a clear offlaner here, which is going to be the Clockwork. He's most likely going to be a solo offlaner. He's not really a hero that likes to share the lane because he needs the EXP, he needs the 6, he needs the max flare, all that fun stuff. So you should be expecting a solo Clockwork. In this case, the PL does get a Stout Shield, which I don't think is the item. And again, it's very important to be itemizing properly, to not be wasting your gold, to be, as efficient as possible with your items, because you're at this level where the slightest mistake can really mean a loss or a win or all this fun stuff. So realistically, a majority of Clockwork Harass, sure, his base damage is alright. You are in a tri lane, or you're in a solo lane, you're not in a dual lane or anything like that, so maybe you're a little bit worried. But it's very tough to trade hits with a PL, Stout Shield or not. In this case, I think Stout Shield's not that necessary. A majority of the harass is going to come from the Battery Assault, which obviously a Stout Shield's not going to help much. The rest of that, a Ring of Protection is fantastic. You're going to be building a Basilius most likely no matter what, potentially a Vladimir's offering. So I think Basilius, like a Stout Shield or Ring of Protection into a Basilius is fine, but I think Stout Shield is a little bit overkill. Maybe he was worried about being in a dual lane or something like that, in which case I think you should be able to get it at the side shop or just get it ferried out to you by the courier. I think that's probably the best decision you can make in that point. But it's very important early on in the game while you're waiting for the rune to spawn, or right when you come in, or even like right after you pick, is to look at the heroes and think about okay, you know what, like what items am I going to need to buy to be effective in this lane? As we just saw there, took a ton of damage from Battery Assault. Ring of Protection helping him out a little bit. Battery Assault, obviously, Stout Shield doesn't prevent any of that damage, so it didn't really help all that much. It looks like they should be able to get this kill nevertheless, though, and that's always good. Getting if he got some lucky bounces there, could have potentially been the death over here of the PL, but does manage to help out with that kill, get a little bit of gold off of that. Unfortunately, not very worth it though, right? He doesn't have that much regen. He's going to have to return home. He's going to have to miss out on about a creep wave or two of CS, and he only got 81 gold for that. So the fact that he has to go home means that if we take a look at what he's losing out on here, so sure, you're sharing it a little bit with Alina, so it's not all that lost out. But as the carry, you really can't afford to be in lane or to leave lane. 3 minutes in, somebody should have the Flying Courier. If nobody does have it, I would seriously beg for it and ferry out a salve. Your HP pool is about 600. Salve is essentially that entire HP pool alongside a Tango. Or just ask this laner for herself, realistically, because even if you buy a salve, you make up for it by just staying in lane and getting any of these like 2.5 creep waves worth of farm. So going home there, incredibly inefficient, and doesn't really help your GPM in overall, but you're still doing all right. Just something I noticed that's probably could have done to be a little bit more efficient here. Going to be grabbing the Basilius. That's great. Be very careful of the Clockwork because he does have a lot of kill potential, despite, you know, not being that strong of a hero. Right click wise, Battery Assault does do a lot more than people expect, and it looks like he's going for the battery, or the Battery Assault max here. If we take a look over real quick, yeah, well, not the max. He's got 2-1-2, which tends to be the fairly average build here. Does grab himself a nice kill there. Not really much you could have done. She was just in a kind of a promiscuous position there alongside that pull. So CSing pretty well. Missing out on a lot of that CS does really hurt. Going home is not really what you wanted to do there. And it looks like he's going to finish the full Aquila. So I think this game, if I'm looking at this game right now, there's two ways I can look at it. One, my team has a Lina, a Leshrac, a Storm Spirit, and an Undying. Those 4 heroes are fantastic at fighting early on. They scale exceptionally well aside from the Undying, but they're great at fighting early on. And against the other team, if they play it well, they can most likely do it without the PL. If you fight this well, you probably don't get hooked, or if you do, it's not all too effective because you've got the Tombstone down, and there's a lot of zombies in the way, all that fun stuff. The Gyrocopter's good at dealing with the Tombstone, but the Lina's, you know, Lina, she's good at dealing with everybody. Same with the Leshrac. Lina, Leshrac, Undying, Storm Spirit, not that great targets for the Wyvern ulti. They don't really have strong attack speed, base damage, all that fun stuff. Perhaps if the Storm Spirit goes shreds, he's a little bit dangerous to his own teammates. But aside from that, it's not that bad for them. In all honesty, it's not that bad for them to fight 4v5, especially if the PL plays it properly. So he's got the option of fighting it 4v5, or he's got, in my opinion, the worst option here, which he doesn't do. But the worst option here is to go a fighting build and to go like Aquila, drums, treads, and to just try and fight with your team, because realistically I don't believe you would need to in this situation. However, he does differ from the build a little bit. I'm a little bit torn as to whether or not it works out, but we'll keep going from here and take a look as to how this is going to go. So speed it up a little bit, going to cancel that clarity. I like that. I certainly think with the Basilius it's fairly worth it to do something like that. Have to be a little bit careful there. It does end up going down. An unfortunate death that wasn't really necessary. And for this reason, for these reasons that it is possible for him to die, I have a little bit of a disagreement with his item choice that he does go for. So we'll just keep an eye on it. And as we can see right now, he's going for the Yasha. And the Yasha gives him a couple things. It is somewhat of a farming tool. It gives you some move speed, but mainly it gives you armor, and it gives you some nice agility for your illusions to help push out the wave. So I'm alright with that because it seems like he really wants to push. But I think drums into Boots of Travel is certainly the best build. Just because if you go drums Aquila, you still have the option of fighting, but it's still good for pushing, and it gives you some raw HP that you're going to need up against somebody like a Clockwork who does have the potential to kill you with that global silence early on, because you're not going to be rushing a Manta. Realistically, it's not worth it. So if you get hooked into a global silence, you're probably going to die with just Yasha Aquila. I think drums is pretty necessary just to give you that HP to potentially not die, as weird as that sounds. So I think the item choice could have been a bit better. The one thing it does help, it does mean that you get the earlier Manta in order to get away from the global silence when it does come. But, you know, there's something about being a little bit too efficient and cutting too many corners that, you know, sometimes it's not always worth it. In this case, you know, it does end up being alright, but mainly because the enemy team has kind of an issue with how they should be focusing the enemy heroes, in my opinion. And I think they should have put a little bit more emphasis on this PL, because realistically he's pretty well the key to them losing this game. So he grabs a bottle. I'm fine with that. I think bottle's a fantastic item on PA. The runes give you a lot of potential in terms of pushing, escaping ganks, all that fun stuff. But he, you know, he does a great job. He's watching the map, watching how the fights are going on. The one thing I do think that he could work on a little bit this game is checking the items of the enemy heroes. There's a few items that are going to be very important in this game. for his safety. One of them is going to be, I mean, sometimes you can really feel out the course of the game and how it's going down, so you don't have to, you know, for certain get one of these items. But, you know, he's got to be careful of a potential blink on a Winter Wyvern, and he has to be careful of the potential of an Aghanim Scepter or something like a Glimmer Cape on a Clockwork. Clockwork, I think Glimmer Cape is fairly underrated. The ability to initiate from Invis is incredibly strong against a hero like PL. I mean, you know, PL is pretty good against Clockwork in general, but any hero really initiating from a Glimmer Cape is hard to deal with. So he probably could have been a little bit more efficient with keeping an eye on those items. Maybe I wasn't really paying attention. He was actually doing so. But I think it's important to click on the heroes, see what items they're going for, see what you're going to be up against. Because if they're going, I mean, unless your team's making calls here, but if they're starting to go for items that are all in, for example, they're doing like, I don't know, something stupid like Mass Necro Book, or like they're picking up a medallion or something like a medallion, and they're going like Aquila Drums medallion into like a Vlad's, and they're looking at pushing early on and working on early team fights so they don't get it to late game. These are things you should know. Again, I'm not sure if they're communicating any of this. If not, this is the one thing I don't like about replay analysis. If not, though, I do think he could work on that. As well as bringing up the scoreboard. I'm not sure if it just doesn't show in Reborn, but bringing up the scoreboard and keeping an eye on the levels. But he does a good job of paying attention to what's going on here. Almost has his boots of travel, so he's farming pretty well, I would say. Doing alright. Fun stuff. PL doing PL things. Diffusal Blade next. Definitely the item. I don't think he needs the Manta that bad at this point, because his team is still doing alright fighting, and he doesn't need to join the fight, so he doesn't have to worry too much about the Global Silence. Maybe a little bit about the Global Silence ganks, but if they spend it on a gank on the PL, they're almost certainly going to lose a team fight if they push up as 4 after that. So he gets a nice pick there. He joins this team fight beautifully after pushing top lane. And this is some textbook PL, honestly. Pushing well, joining a fight. He ends up being in the right position at the right time. He's aware of how, you know, the game is looking. And he's very lucky because he's got a lot of tier 1s. And something I think he could do a little bit more is exactly what he's doing right now, is pressuring the enemy jungle. When you've got tier 1s, it's actually very, I want to say safe for you, because your team has a great point to TP in order to save you for a gank. And you also have a nice escape path. They don't want to dive towards that T1. They also don't want to chase you towards that T1, so it's always kind of scary. So whenever I have a T1 up in my off lane and I'm a carry, especially if I've already got their off lane towers gone, I'm certainly going to rotate down to the enemy safe lane and pressure their safe lane and their jungle a lot, especially as a PL. Even with that low illusion duration, it's still long enough to spread them out a little bit if you need to throw 1 or 2 out into the jungle and scout out. But I think playing aggressively in the enemy jungle is very important. Comes up over here, ends up dying. Unfortunately, Wyvern is a great hero at preventing somebody from dying. And he does join that fight a little bit, unfortunately. If we take a look at kind of... Oof, man, Reborn. Whew. Alright, one more time here. If we take a look at what's going on here, so what can we see right now? Actually, we'll let this go for a little bit. So if we look around the map here, Lina, no TP. Leshrac, no way he can fight for another little bit. PL, not that strong. He gets initiated on and instantly silenced. So if I'm PL right now, there is no way you're winning this fight. Like, no way. You can see all these heroes right now. Sure, throw that out, but I would get out of here immediately and TP bottom, especially after that global silence was wasted, because you know it is incredibly safe for you to leave now. There's no way they're going to be able to gank you bot lane with a global, so you should be able to just doppel walk out. But this is so juicy right here. This farm is actually huge. Imagine if you would have just escaped that, let your Undying be the only casualty. You TP bot, I'm almost certain you can pressure this tower to half HP before they glyph. They potentially take your tower at the same time, but you're trading a tier 1 for a ton of pressure bot lane. You're going to end up getting about 600 net worth of gold by farming the lane as well as the creep camps, even after pressuring this tower. And you're going to ensure that they can't continue on after that tier 1. And when you're playing against a PL or any rat hero, any damage on a tower is really scary, right? Because if you lose a team fight and this tower's at half HP, that tower's gone. This tower's potentially losing more HP. It just makes it scarier and scarier as the game goes on. Whereas right now they're feeling pretty safe. There's only like an 1/8 of damage on this tower, so if anything happens, they're like, oh, whatever, you know, they still gotta go through that tower. We've got a glyph for the racks, whatever. And as once you're up around this 5k level, if you can get a glyph out on this tower bot, that's pretty good, right? Because if you can get a glyph out and say, okay guys, they don't have a glyph for a next little while, if we can force a team fight and win this team fight, we can certainly get this tower and potentially even get mid tower or get about half damage on this tower before their glyph is up and they're comfortable to fight again. So that's something to keep in mind again, is being very aware of how an enemy is going to use a glyph, and that's something that's pretty important once you get up around this 5k level. So something to keep in mind there as well. You're working on the Manta style, and we'll kind of take off from here. I think I've spoken a little bit much about that. I'm sure after that fight you thought, shit, I should have just gone bottom. But that's something you certainly did need to recognize there, that going bottom instead of fighting would have been fantastic. There's something to be said about checking the enemy heroes, but if you're on a team with nobody that's vocal, there's something to be said about checking your own heroes, right? If you would have checked that Lina, checked that Leshrac right before thinking about going in on that fight, you would have seen, okay, no TP, even if she does TP and it's going to be in a terrible location, and also no mana on the Leshrac. He's going to be without, or we're going to be without him in this fight for about 13 seconds. So I like where he's farming right now. He's a little bit unsure about where the enemy team could be. The one thing I would be aware of as well is the global silence cooldown and really stretching that. So at this level as well, you need to start being aware of you know, when global silence can be used, when it was used. Use the timer for that. It's so easy to alt click the clock and then just get the time and just write global. If you don't know how long global cooldown is, simply just when you're dead, leave the game. Don't actually leave the game, but leave the game, go to the hero library or something like that, look at global cooldown at X level, and then say, okay, so I have this time, global cooldown's another whatever 60 seconds from now. I can be a little bit more aggressive for 60 seconds, and that's how these 5.5 6k cores really get to the point they are. They're fantastic at stretching their limits. And look at this. So this is something you could have done bottom. This is something you could have done instead of fighting. You could have done it a lot earlier. Unfortunately, you do get caught out there with a couple ultimates. You alongside that Storm Spirit do die. And now it's getting a little bit sketchy for you guys. You do manage to get that one tower, but you're alive and you're ready to TP somewhere. You're unsure about TPing to that one creep wave because it's a little bit sketchy. In my opinion, I would TP bot here. You do manage to snipe this courier, which is actually pretty solid. There wasn't anything on it. Oh no, there was 1800. Damn. Nice. All right, so that was actually pretty legit. I would have gone bottom for a couple reasons. I wouldn't TP to the creep wave. I would probably TP to the tower. You know they don't have global because they just used it. They will have it somewhat soon, but you can at least push that for a little bit. But you TP bot, you throw your Manta illusions down out towards their jungle, because there's a couple things they're probably doing right now. Since they're not showing top or bottom, they're either smoke ganking or doing Roshan. If they're smoke ganking, they're probably not going to wait around bot lane. They're going to be going through your jungle, because realistically, who's going to wait around bot lane? It's starting to push into their territory, so it's a little bit sketchy. You kind of have to next level them, right? Like, you have to go somewhere that it would be almost stupid to go to, right? Like, you have to go somewhere that if you were there and they weren't smoke ganking, you would probably die. But they're either doing Roshan or they're smoke ganking. In this case, they're doing Rosh, which they're not going to stop to prevent you from farming. They're probably going to continue on, and you can just farm that out. Once you see that Rosh was done, send out a few more illusions, probably dip into the trees and TP out. Or if they're smoke ganking, they're going to go through your jungle or wait around mid lane, something like that. They could be like super sick and think, you know, this guy's going to TP to probably bot lane to push out, so we'll go there, whatever. But obviously that's not what happened. So they had a couple of options there. They did do Roshan. Unfortunately, you weren't able to get the most out of it. It seemed like you guys were thinking it was a smoke gank because you were grouped up a lot. You backed off after sniping their courier. You were a little bit scared, but you know, that's pretty important as well. I think another thing that's that courier could have showed you is that they're probably not smoke ganking, because usually teams will not use the courier when they smoke gank because they're afraid of, you know, it breaking the fact that they're smoked. It flies over a ward and you're like, wait a minute, nobody's there. Actually, no, they must all be invis. They're smoked. So people probably won't use the courier. If they're sending it to the secret shop, they're probably doing something like roshing. I doubt at a 5k plus level, they're going to be sharing their jungle between 5 heroes. So that was probably something you could have done, was go bottom there. But we'll speed through this. I'm just trying to help you with your general decision making and what you should be thinking of, right? There, you should have been thinking, okay, what could they be doing right now? Either a Roshan or a smoke, and they end up doing Roshan. Either way, you could have farmed bot and pushed it out a little bit, made it a little bit sketchy for them. Or, I mean, you could have gone top, but you could have been more aggressive top, right? Like, you could have really pushed top. This fight, a little bit sketchy to TP into, right? For a couple of reasons. Because the main one, can't click on that guy, being this thing right here, right? Like, they've got an Aegis. You see that this Wyvern just threw down his ultimate, and look who's not in your fight here. So that's kind of like, no offense, I think that's a pretty bad move in all honesty. If you guys lost the game, this would have been a huge reason, not a huge reason, but this would have been, you know, a fairly large point against you. Because realistically, there's absolutely no way you help out in this fight in any way. Like, in any way. There's 3 heroes there. The fight's already over once the Wyvern and the Gyrocopter ult. Even before that, the fact that they have an Aegis and 5 heroes, and you guys will almost only certainly have 4 because the Storm's not going to TP in on a 3rd mana, means the fight's over. You should have just stayed top, and you're going to be able to force them home, and they're going to have to defend against you instead of trading, because they got to go through this tower, right? You've got 2 free glyphs, which is absolutely massive. Tier 1 tower, 28 minutes in, is so important because it means you have another glyph. You can make them wait longer. So if you're top lane, I honestly don't think they can take your Tier 2 tower. I think they can take your Tier 1, and that's it. Another thing, nobody pops that glyph. That's unfortunate. Maybe a lot of these old school Dota players not really considering the double glyph. But yeah, you certainly could have, look at that. There's already some damage on there. You could have been up there taking that tower down to about half. You know, if you were aware that they would be smoke ganking or Roshan somewhere either around your jungle or at Roshan, you probably could have really pushed it earlier on as well, gotten some damage there. So these are the minute decisions that I talk about when I go over 3K players that I never talk about in their games, because it's not something they need to work on. But when you're at this level and you're looking at getting better, it's something you certainly need to be aware of. So looks like you're ready to go in on this fight here. I think this is probably a fight you can take. PL is a pretty disgusting hero once he has a diffusal blade, and it's very important. It's very important that you do get that item up and you do fight with it. So you're ready to go top here. Is this on your player perspective? Yes, it is. Pressuring this tower out pretty well, doing well. You do end up dying. Probably could have been more aware. It seemed like you just didn't respect them that much. Wyvern alongside the Omni Knight doing quite a bit of damage here. That pure damage, oh, actually no, that misses. Oh, it's the Wyvern ulti. Okay, so it's you that do a lot of damage to yourself there. But, you know, pretty important. Purification, pure damage. There we go, finally it hits you. But could have been a little bit more respectful of the damage output that they had the potential of. And you do end up going down there. Realistically, I think the play would have been a back out TP bot, because they're most likely going to come top to defend you, which they all did. They came top to defend you. You could have gotten about a creep wave or 2 of farm before having to back out or something like that. So it looks like the fight mid is ready. You do use your doppelwalk to get into the fight, which is a little bit odd in my opinion. I think doppelwalk is very important for PL in a fight, because it's a way to reposition a lot of illusions very quickly. Or if you're at this point where you don't have a lot of illusions, it's a way to get a few out very quickly. So you guys do end up winning that fight. You do almost die. It is very close, but you do manage to do it. I would TP bot. They really don't need you to push this because the entire team is dead. They probably could have gotten that themselves, but I would certainly TP bot right now and start pushing that out. You know they're going to have a glyph, and you know they're going to be up in time to defend this, which they should. Do they have a glyph? I thought they had a glyph. Yeah, they did have a glyph, right? Oh no, that's your team. Oh no, they didn't have a glyph. What did they spend the glyph? I have no idea what they spent the glyph on. I gotta rewind this. Did they use it on this tower? Oh, they glyph at the tower. Okay. That was bad. They glyphed when nobody was up to get rid of the creep wave or to pressure you guys out. Okay, so never mind. That was not bad. I guess this ended up working out. Okay, so that was good then. I guess it was good you didn't TP bot. Never mind that entire thing. I thought they'd be able to prevent that. If they used their glyph a little bit better, they probably would have been able to, but also I think it's alright to buy back on one hero there to save your racks, especially against a PL. Like, whenever you're against the split push hero, it's like one of the most important things is that you need to save your racks. And they go for a Roshan, but usually the rule of thumb at this point is if you're going to go for a Roshan, leave yourself open for split pushing, you're probably going to lose a rack. So, not the person I want to be watching. I do want to be watching you. You go for a Scotty, which is alright as your next item. I think Scotty's a fantastic item on PL. It gives him some pretty solid HP and everything. There's a lot of should I get Heart or should I get Scotty talk. For maybe the people who don't understand when one over the other, I think a majority of the time you should get Scotty unless you need to siege the enemy. So if you need to siege their base, you have to go up there, plink off with a couple of illusions, come back, regen up. You know, you're at it, like you took a quarter damage. You back off, regen up, wait for the next creep wave, and then you go back in. The only time you want to grab a Heart is when you're slowly sieging the enemy team, and you need to be able to back up, regen a lot, and then go back into the fight. Obviously, Scotty doesn't award you that. I see people comparing the stats for Scotty and saying, oh, it gives you like pretty much the same. It's actually just as good. No, that is not. They're two completely different items. One allows you to regen and stay in a fight. The other one gives you, you know, a slow and all this stuff. So whatever. I think I talked enough about that for the people who are unsure sometimes. But I think in this case, Scotty's probably the better item. The raw HP from Heart isn't really going to help him in that many situations because it's really not too much higher. So he does alright here. So we'll just keep going. The next item he does go for is a butterfly, and it's alright. I think they're going to have a very tough time dealing with the illusions. However, a majority of their damage actually comes from magical damage, right? Aside from this gyrocopter who's comfortable buying an MKB at some point, he's probably saving his gold because he's not sure if he needs to buy one or not. In which case, I honestly think, it sounds so weird, but I think just upgrading, I think you don't really need the butterfly that much. I think if you're worried about your illusions dying, you probably change it up and you get like a Heart if you think your illusions are going to die, so you're getting the mischance for that. You probably get a Heart. Butterfly for the damage isn't that bad. Well, I mean, it's actually fantastic. What am I saying? Butterfly for the damage is great, but I should probably be going over this where he just died because I have no idea what just happened. I wasn't paying attention. Going off on a tangent. Alright, so he's up and he's ready to go towards mid. He's pinging out the Aegis. He's saying, guys, he's got an Aegis. There's not really much we can do. And Blink Sheep. Okay, so again, that's what I'm talking about, being aware of what items they have the potential for. In this case, they have the Wyvern ulti on top of you and the Sheep on the Silencer. Yeah, so the Silencer does... He's got a Refresher Sheep, which is very scary. That's a double Hex. So you really needed to be aware of that. But, you know, whatever. Your team's ratting. Anyways, I'd honestly buy back and either help your team rat top and then rotate bottom, or like save your racks here, because you could have bought back and probably just ended the game by killing them all right now because you're PL and you're disgusting. And you did die fairly quickly there, so I honestly think a Heart was the better option than Butterfly. It seems weird because you're like, oh, I already have a Scotty, but realistically, none of these heroes are able to survive your damage that well. So if you just upgrade the Diffusal and get a Heart, they're going to have a near impossible time dealing with you, because the majority of their damage is from the Gyro Magical, the Silencer, Glaives maybe, and then obviously another thing that Heart is good for is that it doesn't give your illusions more damage for the Wyvern to feed off of, which is huge, right? Because the majority of their damage is actually coming from your team, mainly yourself, killing you with your illusions, right? That happened a couple times, maybe just once, but realistically later on, if that does happen, it's a majority of the damage is coming from your illusions killing yourself or the enemy team. And a heart just means they're less dangerous to you, but you're still dangerous to the enemy because they have to be the ones killing those illusions. I would, yeah, just continue bot lane. Just keep going ham bot for sure. BKB, not a bad choice because they have a lot of magical damage, but I think heart would give you so much HP that you wouldn't need to worry about magic immunity, and you could essentially just go ham because they're still going to go through the magic immunity with like clock hook, wyvern ult, stuff like that. But I mean, I guess you won't die to the gyro stuff, but the magical damage from gyro, since magical damage doesn't scale like you know, physical damage does, like it just does that base whatever X amount of damage, and you have that X amount of whatever. Building raw HP actually helps against magical damage altogether, so I think the BKB is great for a little bit. It's good for helping you out against the sheep, but if you're playing it well, you shouldn't get caught out with the sheep because you should have a couple illusions with you. At this point, the game's like super intense. Everybody's trying super hard because it's like 2 racks down, yada yada yada. But I know you guys win this game, so it's pretty much over at this point. Excuse me, and I've probably talked about it enough, but we'll just continue on here. Why not? We're having a good time. 5.1k. I don't get any players this high that often, so we'll at least watch it out to the end here. Doing a great job. Doing a great job. Gonna come back. Be aware of where you come back. Gonna try to manta, but it looks like you're dead no matter what. Yeah, they're gonna go down. Alright, so whatever. I mean, the game's over anyways. They just got mega creeps, and there's absolutely no way, even with the gyrocopter, unless he's like 2 rapiers up or something, they can come back. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So you go for the butterfly. Probably could have gone for the heart. BKB I'm somewhat alright with, but I think a heart would have been good enough for sure. For sure. And it seems like we're pretty well done here. The one thing I'm actually curious about now that I'm not sure is if you regen during Doppelganger. I guess it wouldn't last long enough, so it doesn't even matter, but I wonder if you ate a regen rune or something and used Doppelwalk. If you can regen, I should probably try that out after this game. Anyways, still going on, still going on. Game's pretty much over. You're at full HP, upgraded Diffusal. You go down again, you buy back. Kind of sketchy because they, yeah, no, they can't punish that. Alright, so everybody's done, everybody's salty, people yelling at each other, it's the end of the game. But it was a great game. Hopefully I helped you a little bit with your decision making. A little bit of itemization, I don't think that was that bad. Maybe a little bit early on you could have done a little bit better. But your decision making, hopefully now you'll be a little bit more aware of using and abusing glyphs. You'll be a little bit more aware of you know, when there's a hero like Silencer, abusing when his ult is off cooldown, understanding where they could be on the map. Again, they were either smoking or roshing, in which case bot lane should have been very safe for you to go, realistically. In my opinion, at least, there's obviously some people who I'm sure would go against that, but I think smoking or roshing is really the only 2 options they had there, and both of which meant you could have pressured bot lane or top lane. Since top lane was super deep, it wasn't near your jungle or anything. Unless they're going to smoke up the lane and go to your jungle that way. That's potentially scary. But again, thank you so much. Heisen. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. But thanks again for the game. And hopefully it did help you out a little bit. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to check out some of my other videos. I have my series from lane to lane where I just cast some everyday pubs that you guys send me. I also do some more professional pubs like games from Koikva, Miracle, whoever I can get my hands on from Dodobuff. I have a learning series as well, so feel free to check that out. There's some more info in the description as well as some videos linked in the annotations at the end here. Thanks a lot.